Are you training for the next big race and unsure what to do with your nutrition? Well, take advantage of Precision Fuel and Hydration's free online planner. It'll help you figure out exactly how much carbs, sodium, and fluid you need to smash your goals. I swear by their 90-gram resealable gel on all my long runs and recently used it at the Ballarat Marathon. Click the link in the show notes, use the planner, and get 15% off your first order with the code INSIDERUN15. Support the Inside Running podcast and boost your performance. Now let's dive into this week's episode.
Child, that your skin can bring you so much pain. Now I hear you say you got the best of both ways. Won't you come and take a walk in my shoes and tell me if you take my place? Undercover of my skin, I've heard all your names. If it's all the same, I'll keep on walking.
Welcome to episode 357 of the Inside Running podcast. With Julian holidaying in Switzerland and Brady recapping his 200-kilometre weeks over on Patreon, I'm left with the job of holding down the fort. Thankfully, I'm joined by a couple of superstars, so I'm sure we'll be fine. This week, we've got World Junior results to recap, Diamond League, Paralympics and National Cross results, as well as a listener question about dealing with low motivation. Now, speaking of National Cross, welcome to one of my co-hosts who over the weekend won her first open cross-country title. Welcome back to the Inside Running podcast, Leanne Pompeani.
Thanks for having me back.
No worries. No, thank you for giving up some of your Monday night. And congratulations. I did some research today and you finished second at Nationals on 3 occasions, 2017, 2022 and 2023. So it must be nice to finally be standing on top of the top podium.
Yeah, no, it's funny because people say like, "Oh, cross country is your thing," and I said, "Well, I haven't actually won the national champs yet." So yeah, that's good to tick it off. And it's funny. I was sitting down to dinner with Sean Crichton Saturday night, and he in his normal fashion. We were doing sort of his trivia, and he was saying, "Is there any female that's won national cross twice?" And we couldn't think of anyone. So
yeah, right. Yeah, because I did notice that every time you finished second, it was to a different person.
Yeah.
And by the looks of it, conditions were absolutely atrocious. Like, we will get to that, but were you worried a little bit? Because I guess on paper, you were probably this like standout for the win, but were you worried that those conditions would maybe level the playing field a little bit?
Yeah, that definitely. Like you said, on paper, I was the favourite, and that makes me even more nervous when you're put as a favourite. But also that the weather, anything can happen, especially in those conditions. Like, you could have a trip in the mud so easily. Like, I was slipping around all over the place. Like, one bad step and you're done. Or it was atrocious out there.
Yeah. Oh, I look forward to hearing the recap. Now to my other co-host. Our patrons would have heard him during the Olympics with his expert analysis on The Daily Show, but tonight he makes his debut co-hosting the main show. He's a 4-time Olympian, the national record holder over 1K, and is currently training for his debut marathon. Welcome back, Jeff Riseley.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Croaks. I'm just here for the marathon training tips. So,
well, I thought before we get to that, the last time, outside of the patrons, the last time people would have heard from you was Brady did an exit interview back in 2022, just after you'd announced your retirement. So maybe do you want to fill us in on what you've been doing in the last couple of years? I believe, sort of got a little bit unfit, then got sort of semi-track fit again, and now the decision to train for a marathon.
So I probably had a year out of running and just went to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. Just felt like I needed a bit of a break from all the running and wanted a bit of a different challenge. So I tried to see how much weight I could put on. I think I got to 88 kilos and running just got really hard. So I went from about 72 to about 88. And yeah, running just got a lot harder. And in that time, I spent 3 months at Princeton. So I sort of started doing a few runs with the boys there, and I was just so unfit. And then, yeah, so basically, yeah, retired. I had a sort of 2 credits left of my master's to finish, which was sort of I'd left as a bit of an internship or a minor project. So I ended up going over to Princeton and doing my minor project there. So I volunteer coached for the semester and just collected training data on basically training intensities. So just like easy runs, sort of threshold, and then anything over threshold. Just collected it sort of through Training Peaks, all the kids' data, which was really awesome. And then obviously, yeah, I wanted to get some experience in coaching because I sort of decided that I wanted to sort of transition in that sort of space. Yeah, so I coached the middle distance group because this was like in the cross country season. Because there's 30 guys on a roster for one coach, it was pretty valuable for Vig to have me there to look after sort of 15 of the middle distance guys so he could concentrate on like the cross country guys. Yeah, and then traveled with all the teams to the Cowboy Jamboree, which was a massive one. It's a little bit like the Nutty Comb. And then we made NCAA championships at Oklahoma, which was just one of the most crazy things I've ever been to. Just like 300 guys on a start line, just charging out the first K in like 2:35, and Princeton were unfortunately like lane 2, and we had NAU next to us, and the boys just got a bit excited going with the NAU guys, and I think we were second after the first 1 or 2K, and we ended up 30th. So there was a bit of carnage on the track, but so I sort of got back from there and then started coaching, or got a full-time head of athletics role at Melbourne Girls Grammar, which is just on the tan there. Figured what better place to build, a running sort of culture and program at school on the tan. So, in my second year of that, sort of in that sort of 12 to 18 months period, didn't really run at all. And then jumped into some mileage races earlier on in the year because none of my girls at school had ever experienced, they don't run for a club. It's just all school stuff. So I sort of started introducing them to the big milers, and I thought, well, at least if I'm out there flopping around, it'll make it a bit easier for them. So that's kind of where it all started. But, I guess also I just got to that point where I couldn't really run half an hour easy with friends.
Yeah.
And be able to chat. So that was sort of the main motivation of getting back into running. And then, it just kind of built from there, and, decided to dip my toes in the marathon just for a bit of fun. At Melbourne. So
did you ever think, so when you were running competitively over 8 and 1500, was the marathon something that you thought you would want to have a go at one day, or you're one of those middle distance runners that looked at the marathon as just going, man, that's crazy, that's way too far?
Yeah, no, not at all. And when we're doing the daily pod for the Olympics, you guys are like, it's 3:53K pace, you'll do that easy. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm 6'4" and 82 kilos. Like, it's just a lot to, like, I don't have the typical marathon build, I guess.
So what inspired you? So what was the sort of trigger to go, hey, I want to run a marathon now?
Just a bit of a challenge. And I had a couple of friends doing it. My brother did it in 2022, so I helped sort of coach him. He ran 2:57. And then, last year I did the half with my brother when I got back from Princeton, just off not much training. And just the atmosphere of Melbourne Marathon was just really awesome, just on the start line, and having heaps of people around to run with. So that kind of kick-started it. And then also, like, I'm 37, so like I'm just slowly on the downhill of the bell curve. So I figured if I don't do one now, it's just going to get exponentially harder to do one. So I figured I'd dip my toes in, and then I'll either be one and done, or I might get motivated to try and do an overseas one just for like the experience and a bit of a trip.
And back to that Princeton experience, was there something that stood out for you, the way that they were training over there compared to what we do back here?
Yeah, they only do 2 sessions a week, and a lot of like 10 milers. So nearly once a fortnight, the cross guys would basically do 10 milers. So yeah, just way more volume. And I guess, yeah, like I've always wanted to get into coaching, and I love like the development of the kids, and that's, why I'm in the school right now, and starting to coach privately, because I want to kind of prepare kids for those experiences, because they're going over there and it's just a different world. Like our freshmen are, kind of thrown into 120K weeks. You've kind of got that big group effects of like, 15 to 20 guys on the team, and, of all different ages. And, if you're a young buck, you want to get in there and rub shoulders. So, yeah, a lot of our freshman kids were sort of getting a little bit banged up. So I was sort of running the rehab program. So yeah, I actually do some private coaching, and I adopted the Tuesday, Friday schedule basically from my experience over there. So
yeah. And
the biggest things.
Speaking of the Milers Club stuff you're doing, because I remember there was one episode. So Julian loves sitting back watching some of these like Milers meets, like from early on in the night. And he mentioned on one of the episodes that he saw you going around in a 1500 where you ran like 420, maybe something like that. Was that like early? Was that early on in your comeback? And was that all out?
Yeah, that was all out. Like that was, I was stinging. And the worst thing was, like, I was in like the F race, and like I nearly got dropped in the first 200 because they just went out so fast. And I said, boys, we've gone through 200 in 30 seconds. I said, we're on 3:45 pace. It's like meant to be the 4:15 group. I was just like, these young kids, I was just shaking my head. So I was last through the first lap, nearly like gapped. And I think I ended up running through for 5th. So used a bit of my smarts. But yeah, no, I was all out, and I was like, oh, damn, I need to do a bit of work. So then I entered an 800, and I was like, well, what am I going to run for 800? I just ran like 4:13, I think, for 1500, which I think on the points like calculator like worked out to like a 2:02. So I was like, all right, I'll enter as like 2 minutes. And anyway, I ended up the slowest in the heat with like seed guys of 1:56. And I was like, geez, Tim Crosby, what have you done to me? But yeah, I think just because like the shorter it goes, and I think the 1500 was so hard because I was carrying so much weight around the track, whereas the 800 is a bit of a different system. And yeah, I ended up winning by about 15 meters. I sprinted in the last 100, felt pretty good for a moment. Yeah, and then did a little bit more training, and then I got put in the A race for the next time. And it wasn't great weather, and I think I ran 152.
Yeah, I had a look at your World Athletics profile today, and yeah, you ran a 152 early in this year, which is like pretty good where you're considering where you've come from. And, now you're...
Yeah, it's a good field. And in my defense, like Brad Mathis was in good shape, and I think he won it in like 149. So I was walking away thinking I was in 150 shape, which was, pretty good. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with that.
And so now that you're in marathon training, do you want to, before you go through your training for the last week, what does like a general week look like for you now running wise?
So I basically decided to take the marathon on basically 4 runs a week. Just with work and coaching, it's just hard to find the time. So I pretty much free up my weekend for either like a really big long run or a session. And then I coach a young boy. And he's kind of like threshold and stuff is around my marathon pace. So I usually just run with him and then add a few K on the end. So I sort of train with him on a Tuesday and a Friday, and then do something long on a Sunday. And then I kind of just fill my weeks in like other days that I can make it work, like just an easy 10K run.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of coming in and off low mileage, but lots of recovery. So
do you want to take us then through what you did last week from Monday through to, I guess, Sunday yesterday?
Yeah, I guess. So just for context, I was coming off a 35K long run on the Sunday. So I got my longest run out, which was good. So yeah, I had Monday off as a day off after my 35. I always have a day off after a big long run because I can feel my hips and my like patella tendon and just everything's getting a bit, So I did just 2K and like 88s or 90s on the track before I jumped in with the kid. And then we did two sets of 800, 600, 400, basically going from like 84s down to 78s. We did that twice. And then finished off with 300s, 5 300s. So I actually noticed Brady likes to run 300s in his marathon block, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's sort of training philosophy on block. So at the moment he's doing like one sort of longer session, but then once a week he's going in and doing some 400s or 300s off, 45 seconds recovery, something like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was doing them off like a minute, and that's when I first noticed. I was like, the first one was like 56, and I was like, whoa, this is feeling way harder than what it should. But eventually got down to 53s, which was good. And then Wednesday I ran 10K. I had Thursday off, and then Friday I did a 5K warm up, and then I did my first like proper marathon session. So I did 5K, 4K, 3K, 2K, 1K with 1K floats. And I went 335, 335, 331, 325, 322, and my floats were for like 410s. But I was going to do it at Albert Park Lake, but instead went to the Burnley Boulevard because we've had like 60 to 80 kilometre winds here. So it was pretty rough. And yeah, that felt pretty good, but I just kind of learned like for these long sessions, you have to be really patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you get a bit carried away at the start, it can build up. And, for me, the longest sort of stuff I used to do was like 8 to maybe 10K a threshold. So, you just want to get in there and,
Yeah. So how did this feel towards the back end? Like, were you really, it no longer felt marathon sort of rhythm? And look, when we spoke on the daily episodes, you were talking about probably like 345K pace for your marathon, and you're now running 335s, 330s. So, what are you aiming for race day?
Well, I'm in two minds. So I've got two friends who are trying to run 235, and then I got another friend and these are the guys I'm training with who are trying to run like 245. And I'm like, I don't want to run like 240 on my own because that'll be boring. So I either send it with my friends or like go conservative with my other friend. But either way, like I'm doing it for the experience, and I'd rather blow up, but at least get through halfway or 30K with my friends. So
and how did this feel throughout?
It felt pretty good. Like I was pretty solo for a while. And we had to keep turning around, and I think the good thing is the 1K floats in 410s are coming out super easy. And I was really banged up and my legs were super beat when I did my 35K run, but 420s wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
It's just my legs were kind of sore. So that's my biggest concern, is just how much of a toll the pace is going to take on my legs, and am I going to be able to get to the finish line?
Yeah.
Because as you said, 340s is not fast for me, but compared to what I used to do, but it's sort of like each kilometre is just going to keep, I'll eventually have a bear sitting on me, I reckon. And
And you're doing it off 4 runs a week and not really that much mileage, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'm probably sitting on 85 at the moment.
Yeah.
So then, Saturday I did 10K when I was in Launceston, which was probably another 10K on that because I was warming up with the girls from MGGS at National Cross. And then I'm one of those nutters of a coach who during their 4K race runs 2.8K because I'm sprinting everywhere and jumping fences and then I did another 20K on Sunday because I'm doing Burnley half.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do super long. I figured this week I'd get a long marathon session in, keep the volume good, but avoid the long run because I've done a 29, a 32, a 32 and a 35 now.
Yeah, that's good. And so this week
how much long running do I need?
Well, like I think 35 is pretty good. Like you probably don't need to go any longer than that for your definitely for your first one. And so what this week will be a full pretty much recovery week, and then you'll go as hard as you can at Burnley.
Yeah, so this is the other thing I'm thinking. Do I go hard at Burnley or do I save a little bit up my sleeve to get into a training block, or do I freshen up? Because what are we, about 6 weeks?
Yeah.
So
it's 6 weeks just gone. Yeah, so you'll have 5 weeks after Burnley. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could use this as a nice little freshen up week, hit a race, and then get another block in, and then I'll probably have to taper a week and a half out.
Yeah, probably at least probably 2 weeks taper minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figure in the next 6 weeks I've got a half, one more big marathon session, and one big long run.
Yeah.
And that's probably all I need. Yeah.
Any advice, Leanne?
I'm not the one to ask. I'm not there yet.
You don't want to join him in Melbourne for your debut as well?
No, I'll be doing half the distance.
Yeah, you're chasing cash in the half.
Well,
Jeff,
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So just say I did 35K, right, and it took me like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's essentially the amount of time that I'm hoping a little bit longer I'm going to be out at the marathon for. Is it the amount of is it distance or the amount of time on the legs that matters most? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Look, I think time probably more so than distance. I've never run 42 kilometers in training. Actually,
okay.
yesterday was my longest training run, both time and distance, and I did 40K in 2 hours 41, which is probably a little bit excessive, but yeah, I've generally never run much more than 36K in a marathon block before, and that's always been around sort of maybe a little bit longer than marathon time. So like when I was running 2:17, I'd still run 2.5 hours on a Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to be running the distance though. Yeah, you don't want to be getting up to 40K, 42K. Yeah.
No, I'll probably get injured. And I did a 32K.
I was just going to say, just because it's your first one as well, I always reckon you're better off being on the conservative side of everything you do for your first one, as opposed to throwing the kitchen sink at it and not getting to the start line or getting there cooked.
Yep. Yeah, because I did a 32K with 10K at 325s, 10K at 409s, and then the last 12K at 340s.
Yeah.
And that's when I took my 5 gels, so I started getting my stomach ready. But I looked after my niece on the Friday night, and she ended up having like a gastro episode and vomiting everywhere, and I was sort of looking after her, and I ended up with that on Sunday afternoon. So like I was stinging at the end of that 12K at 340s, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to do this for 42? But I'm hoping that maybe like I already had the gastro bug and I wasn't absorbing the gels and I was just pretty fatigued. So I reckon I'll try and do a 35 with maybe like 15K at 340 pace just to get a feel for it at the end.
Yeah.
So that's one big session.
Yeah, you don't want to be running a lot faster than marathon pace though, because then that becomes because the whole idea of these, I guess, marathon specific sessions is to prepare your body for that marathon rhythm, get used to taking on all your nutrition at that pace, whereas it's very easy to then start getting into more half marathon sort of effort, which sort of defeats the purpose of the session a little bit.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So my 330s down to 325 and 320s wasn't really
probably a bit quick. Yeah, quick.
Probably not bad for my half though.
Yeah.
And what do I need to run for a half to translate to?
I don't know.
Is there like a maths equation for it?
So I'm just trying to think of guys that I coached that run. I did hear one theory that for some runners it was sort of double your half marathon pace and add 7 minutes.
7? That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I work backwards from that and I go 235 down to 228, so I need to run 74 minutes.
Yeah.
which is roughly 3:35 pace, I think. Oh no, 3:33.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. So like
okay.
I have guys who run sort of 74, 75 minutes for half, and they're running high 2:30s for the marathon.
So what are they running? Did you say for the half?
Like 2:30, 2:38 or so.
Yeah, and what are they running for their half?
Yeah, like 74, 75.
Okay, all right.
But they're probably running, but they've also done a few marathons. They're probably running 100 plus K a week.
Okay.
But they don't have the, I guess, natural ability that you have. And so anyway, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed just lately is it's been getting a bit warmer in Melbourne, and I haven't really been taking on much fluid because, like, I've been taking my gels, but it's harder to take fluid on when you're just out running with people. Yeah. And, I finished a run the other day, and I was like, I think I drank 2 Maximuses on my way home. So I think I've got to look into that a bit more for marathon day.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was going to do a precision order. Do I need the hydration tablets or the hydration carbs? They don't have electrolytes in it, does it?
No, they do have a mix that you can get the carbs and the electrolytes in.
Okay.
But the other option is to. So what I normally do is, and I spoke about this last week during my weekly recap, was because I was taking on a carb drink as well as gels, and I found it much harder to get the carb drink down than gels.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I'll probably do is focus more on the gels from the carbohydrate point of view, and then I'll have some bottles that have maybe just an electrolyte tablet dissolved in it, which tastes, which is a bit more like, I feel like it's a bit easier to get down because it's not as sweet. It's just got that little bit of flavoring to it.
Yep.
But everyone's
I noticed the
different.
gels are way better when you're drinking stuff with them.
Yeah. But also the gels are just easier to get down because, when you're trying to get down a drink plus get that in with your breathing, whereas the gel, you just sort of squeeze it into your mouth and it almost dissolves. So I find the drinking part a lot harder. So, I'd probably stick to the gels and just an electrolyte drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm a Melbourne boy, so I've got my brother on a bike for Melbourne, which will be helpful. He can give me my drinks.
Very
and
good.
my gels.
We'll come back. I've got more marathon questions to ask you, but we'll head over to Leanne. So, Leanne, bit of a recap for you since we last spoke, which would have been just after Gold Coast. So you've had City to Surf since then.
Yeah.
Happy with that? Happy with that run?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's quicker than I did 2 years ago. It's funny. I had the course record in my sights, but I don't know if I'm really chasing something that's achievable because I've heard that the course has slightly changed since then. So maybe I'm chasing something that's
Is it just the end of the course that's changed?
I think so. Yeah, I think most of it's the same, but either way, I was still 30 seconds off, so I've got a lot of work to do if I want to try and chase that. But no, I'm happy with that. Like, yeah, sort of I think I said last time, since coming back from Europe and those doing in the Olympics that aren't around at the moment, I still wanted all these road races that I'm doing to be good performances. Like, I don't want any easy wins, if that makes sense. Like I still want to run times that people go, oh, that still would be competitive. And I think City to Surf was a strong run. Yeah.
How much you won by a fair bit?
I did. Yeah. Second place was Paige Campbell. But yeah, I just sort of, I just go and don't look back.
Yeah. And then, so talk us through like national cross. Like I saw some footage and conditions looked horrendous. And Jeff, you can jump in here at any point because I know you were down there as well. Like, did the conditions
brutal?
So I'd imagine maybe at the start of the day, the course was probably in decent nick, but then by the time the senior races, you've had 6-7 races through there, it's maybe a bit worse.
I think it started off. Yeah. Because Tasmania, I think it's been raining in Tasmania for like 10 days now, 10 days straight. And it was bad before anyone even stepped foot on it. So,
So talk us through so what did the loop look like? Was it hilly? Obviously it was muddy. So how would you describe the loop that you were running on?
yeah, so we did 2x2K, then 2x3K. And it's funny, we only found that out like 2 minutes before the race. None of us even knew because there was nothing posted of what order we're actually running in. I did find no stab at Athletics Australia because they've got a lot on at the moment, but it was a little bit less organized than it normally is. But either way, yeah. So hilly, but not as hilly as World Cross courses. They were more short, sharp hills. But yeah, pretty much the whole thing was just mud or just like frustratingly uneven ground.
Yeah, there's no flat sections where you could get rhythm. And basically one half of the course of the two, especially the 2K loop, was just a bog. And then the other half was pretty dry because it was on the side of a hill. But it was just, uphill, down, up, down, little rises for basically the last 1K. So there was no sections where you could really get comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how'd the race play out? Were you running well within yourself? Like, were all the girls just running within themselves, knowing that, it was a crap day, no one's going to run fast?
Yeah, I sort of went in with a plan of sort of taking the first half pretty comfortably, just run with the pack, whatever the pack is doing. But I do think the pack was doing what I was doing. So that's sort of, but that's how it went. The first half, I felt super comfortable. And then about halfway, I sort of put the foot down a little bit, although that was harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be able to just pull away or even just feel good going off how slow we were going before, but it didn't really come as easy as I'd hoped. It's just one of those courses where I think a lot of people found this out, that it did feel pretty easy to start. Although it was uphill to start, you had a massive tailwind. So you're sort of like, oh, I'm flying up this hill. And it really caught up with everyone probably at, like 6-7K. And I felt pretty good until probably like 1,500, a K to go. And I went from feeling great to feeling like I wasn't even going to be able to finish. Like, I was worried. Like 1K to go, I thought, I don't know if everything was just done. My legs were done. We're going straight into a headwind for the last K. I felt like I was literally not moving forward. So I was looking behind myself to see if the other girls looked like they were moving forward too, because I thought, am I the only one that's am I standing still here? But I knew I had a little bit of a gap that just, I have 1K, just I no need to try and squeeze anything more than what I'm doing. And then I think Ruby Smee, who came second, was slowly closing the gap. But yeah, that's how it played out. I felt good, and then I didn't.
and at what point in the race did you establish that gap?
Yeah, so Holly Campbell and Ruby sort of came with me, I think, for maybe a K and a half, and then probably the last 3 to 4K I had the gap. Yeah.
And have you ever run in conditions like that before, like mud?
Oh no, apart from Oakbank in Adelaide 2 years ago, but this I think topped it. This was because this had the winds, this had it all. Yeah.
Well, I'll get you to recap your week, just so the listeners know what you did in the lead up to that. But before you do that, I'll just go through the results, seeing as though we've just spoken about it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the under 15, 16 girls were on after you, Leanne, and I said to my girls, I was like, it's going to be hard out there. Leanne just ran 38 minutes for 10K.
I know.
And she's a 31 girl. So, because they wanted to wear the watch. So I'm like, watch is not going to mean anything today.
Yeah.
Just roughly know where you are and get on with it.
Yeah. So Leanne, you got the win in 38.19. Ruby Smee from Tassie, has just come back from the US. She was second in 38.35. And then Holly Campbell it was third in 38.52. So, like, probably 5 minutes slower than you'd expect over like a cross-country course for 10K. And then in the men's, Seth O'Donnell, that guy is great in the mud because he won in South Australia at Oakbank as well a couple of years ago. Yep. So he won in 33.19. Ed Marks was second, 33.20, and Haftu Strintzos was third in 33.26. And like last week, both Julian and I had probably Haftu as favourite, just given his like cross country pedigree and even what he's done on the flat. He seemed to be the standout, but it just goes to show like those sort of conditions obviously suit Seth O'Donnell to a T. So
Ed was leading with about 150 to go into that downhill, and Seth went past him in like the last 50 metres. So it was a really like close finish. It was a great race.
Mitch was on the mic and he pretty much had said Ed had won it. And then Seth just sneaks up to him and he goes, oh, wait, no, Seth has won it.
Yeah, wow, it's incredible. So take us through what your Monday to Sunday look like.
Yeah, so again, you get me on a bit of an easier week because it's going into a race. So Monday morning, slightly shorter. I just did 50 minutes, 4:35s, and then an easy 30 minutes and strides in the afternoon. Tuesday morning, a 7K double, slightly shorter than normal, and then in the afternoon, session at Stromlo. We've been at Stromlo a lot, just sort of in between. Obviously it's not track season for our juniors or anything, so we only have one track, which is AIS, open in the winter, so we just pretty much stay on Stromlo, the running course. So the session was 1,500 threshold to begin with, and then 4 sets of 600 and then a 300 and then a 1,500 threshold to finish. I mean, it has been a while. Most of this year I've been training by myself, so it's nice to be back with the group. I was sort of talking to Des a couple of weeks ago because I'd been doing so much training by myself. I said, I'm worried that I've forgotten how to push myself. That like it feels hard when you're doing a session by yourself, but you never know. I always think if there was someone running with me, would I be going harder than I am? So it is good to be back with the group and just, got a good bunch of guys that I can just, hang on to. Honestly, I can't remember the splits that we did for the 600 and 300, but it was pretty much 600 at race pace, the 300 bit quicker than that. My splits are on Garmin. I don't have Garmin up here, so. That was good. That was just something a little bit sharper. And then Wednesday morning, shorter, just 10K at 4:29 with an easy 30 in the afternoon. And then Thursday, just did one sort of really short session because it was a Saturday race. It's probably even shorter than we'd do if it was a Sunday race. So I literally just did a 5-minute threshold with 4 200s with a warm-up and cool-down. And, that was it for the day. And then the Friday, the day before, was just a 7K with some strides. And then it was race day. I did do a shakeout in the morning. It's always hard when you've got a race that isn't super late, but it's not super early. So you're like, oh, maybe I'll squeeze in a 10-minute here. But I did squeeze in a 3K shakeout just because that's what I do. And then the race, which was, it said 38 whatever minutes, 340s for, never would you think you'd be saying, I ran 340 for 10K, but it's just what it is with cross country.
Only got to beat who's there?
Right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I do.
And then your Sunday.
Sorry, I do have a Sunday run.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't expect to see a Sunday run from you in Canberra. So you must have, what?
Yeah, it was a long day. It was a 6 a.m. flight, and I knew that there was going to be no one around. So I messaged my coach. I said, any chance that you want to get on the bike with me? And so I pretty much got home off the flight, put my shoes on, and met him out on the trails. I did 30K with 650 meters elevation, which was really starting to add up pretty quickly. And it was very windy. I don't know about you, but I was just so over it. Like, just couldn't escape the wind. Yeah, but it was a good run, and I knew I was actually probably going to feel worse today, Monday, than yesterday. So just get the long run done. Like,
That's a solid Sunday after Saturday afternoon race.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I think because
you didn't think to keep that one flat.
That's what my coach said, because he was on the bike, so he was struggling up the hills, and he said, "Oh, next time, we can do a flat one." Yeah, I think just because I've still got things coming up, I just thought, I should get something in here. So
yeah, and what are the goals for the rest of the year?
So I do have Melbourne Half, which is probably the next sort of bigger one, and I know it's going to be quite competitive. Like, I'm pretty sure. I don't know for certain, but I expect someone like Jen, Gregson, possibly Izzy, but Doyle will be there. So I know it's not going to be. It'll probably be one of the harder races for the year. And then
that's good though. Nice little test.
Yeah, and that's what we want. That's what my coach Des said. He said, "Look, we want to be racing against the best." Like, yeah. So yeah, I'll also do Sydney, the 10K at Sydney. It's marathon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then just some more road races after that.
So Zatopek probably like.
Sorry, that'll be there. That'll
World Champs next year. That as a selection trial thing, or
I haven't actually looked into that yet. The qualification. I don't think it'll be a selection trial because it's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you run the time at Zatopek, you'll be in, but the time's 30:20 now. So.
Yeah. So is there also a little bit of a loophole if you go to Europe and do some more cross-country races that you can get in on that? Was there an American girl that went last year?
Yeah.
Is that something that, off the back of, seeing we're on the national cross-country topic, is that something you'd look into, or?
So that was a selection criteria, like that was a way of getting in, and it still is, but I was actually looking at that a few weeks ago, and it used to be 8 positions, and now they've reduced it to 3. So, 8 from cross country could take it. So it took 8 spots automatically for the 10K, but now it's only 3. So I'm not sure I would go and chase that for only 3 spots.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see how it goes, because now, I mean, Lauren Ryan's 30:35. I mean, that was amazing, but now that's not even the standard.
Yeah.
So basically, both our men's and women's records are no longer the standard.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's a case for like.
And is that just the super shoes, or is it just the talent that's getting around, or they just reduce the size of the fields? Like, what's the main cause of that?
I don't know. I mean, the standard's just lifted, so they have to lift the times and still hope that 50% qualify on the quota spots. But
I think will you try and go to Sound Running 10K then?
Yeah, I'll have a look to see what we do, whether we, try and make the 10K or we try and qualify for the marathon. We don't know yet.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, in terms of, have you sort of had the chat with Des about next year, whether you do focus on track or whether you do move to the roads, just given how hard the track times are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still want to keep the track there, because I always, I do think having the speed helps the longer stuff. And because even that half marathon I did at the Gold Coast, someone said to me, because I didn't feel like I had been doing a lot of half marathon training. They said, well, you've been doing 5K training, so you're faster than ever before, but you can handle the half marathon distance. So that together works perfectly. Like, yeah, so the pace should feel easy. So, and it did. So, yeah, we'll see. The 10K, that's quick. But I feel like, we have more women closer to that marathon time, which seems a little bit more achievable, but we'll see.
Hey, Jeff, how do you feel about this new qualification criteria where no doubt the times have got faster because they only want 50% of the field to qualify on time and then the rest is through the point system. But personally, I feel like the point system is in a way unfair because it depends what races you can get into. So it's not really an even playing field versus you just going out and running a time. How do you feel about it?
It depends what your ranking was the year before, so what races you're getting. So if you can keep your ranking, so if your ranking drops, then it gets exponentially harder. I think the other thing that is a bit challenging is every different continent has different access to meets. Yeah. Like in Poland, there's 3 or 4 gold meets that they can get access to. You got Silesia and a couple of the World Challenge gold ones. So, France has got 2 diamond leagues. Europe's obviously got a lot more points than a lot of the countries. So yeah, it makes it hard.
And your manager probably plays a fact. Like some managers have access to races, and then even you were chatting before about the cross country. Yeah. It's it's very hard for an Australian to go over to these cross country races versus somebody who's based in Europe or Africa going across. It's really unrealistic for us to do that, to try and qualify for the 10K.
Yeah, really hard. I know an athlete at the moment who's, was on the cusp of trying to run the qualifier this year, but just couldn't quite get the races. You ended up chasing his tail. The longer you chase your tail, the less training you do, the more out of shape you get into. And, he's now home pretty tired and he's sort of I might have to change managers. So, yeah, it's a really challenging one. I sort of said to him, you made a big jump this year that you probably didn't expect to. So you've at least given yourself a good platform. And at the end of the day, if you're in good enough shape, you make opportunities happen.
So would you prefer to see less of this points qualification and more just back to the old school of having times, but obviously the times being a bit easier?
Yeah, well, when I qualified for Tokyo, I went over there and I quickly realised there's no amount of points I'm going to be able to get because the whole quota got filled with qualifying times. So that's the other hard part. Some events are, go through stages where they're really strong. The men's 10K, you had to have the time, didn't you? Everyone ran the time.
Yeah.
Men's and women's. Yeah. So there's some events that, are harder. I don't know. Was World Athletics just trying to make data, add data and add a different complexity that people might follow the sport in a way, and trying to create the world rankings a similar way to you've got the tennis ATP tour and, the golf world rankings. Is that what they were sort of trying to achieve or?
Maybe a bit more head-to-head racing as well, because you used to see it so many times that some of these training groups used to come out, hit the time, and then you'd never see them again, whereas if you have more of an emphasis on points, then that, it means that, even the domestic season here, if there's a lot of points on offer for some of our Grand Prix and nationals, you're going to get our top guys and girls there, which is what we want,
isn't it?
Yeah.
For the fans. Yeah, well, what's going to happen with this new Michael Johnson track league? How are they going to award points for that?
Yeah, because that's very exclusive, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a women's only race happening at the end of this year.
Is that the one with Kat Bissett? Is that the?
Yeah, she's doing it, but there's I think it's Serena Williams' husband setting it up and doing it with Gabby Thomas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think it's $60,000 for the win, maybe. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know, it's a hard one. And then even the longer distance events like the steeple, you only need 3 performances. So which I also understand because 5K as well, you can't go and run 5 in a year. You'll be cooked by the time you get to the champs.
Because for Leanne, in a way, these standards now are so fast that it's almost pushing you towards the road, even though you probably, because I know last time we had you on, you're like, no, I still feel like I've got unfinished business in the track races, but now you're at a level where you want to be making teams, and the easier way for you to make the team is to go to the marathon as opposed to the 5 or the 10.
Yeah, it's almost like, the 30-40 was, a couple of years ago it was 31 10 or whatever, and then it was 30-40, and you know, those still seem somewhat achievable, but then it starts getting even lower, and you're like, oh well. You know, and lower in the same, you know, it's been in within, you know, 12, 18 months, and then it lowers again by another 20 seconds. It's sort of, you know, you hope that it's not, I hate to be sort of the cynic here, but you hope it's not the dopers that are bringing the times down.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, but anyway.
The 10K also, like, there's not many opportunities. Like, where do you run them?
No, that's exactly, that was the problem. Like, this year I did the night of 10K PBs, and I was like, well, there's only a handful, if that, a couple more opportunities if you want to try and do it again. So it's, yeah.
10K is such a funny one. Like, it was one of my favorite races at the Olympics, like the men's one. Like, I was just glued to it. Like, the Ethiopian just pushing it, and like Cheptegei at the back, I'm like, is he going to hang, you know? And it's like, it's just for the Olympics, it just works so well. But then, you know, trying to put a 10K on a track meet,
I know.
Diamond League, it just takes up, you know, the time, and you're not guaranteed to get the best runners. And then everyone's wearing their kits, so everyone looks the same. You can't tell who's who. It loses a lot of its storylines. Whereas for the Olympics, it just like hits so nice, that 10K. And there's just been so many amazing like 10K races over the last few like Olympics, like, you know, the Geb and who was the Kenyan athlete? Turgat, yeah. Like, it's just like, they're just synonymous with the Olympics, these 10K races, you know, but just doesn't have a place anywhere. Well, not that it doesn't have a place anywhere. It's just hard. Like, it's hard to find opportunities.
Yep.
So that's about 130K for you, Leanne, for the week?
Yeah,
cool.
Finished on 130. So, yeah, solid.
And bodies, always ask you this, but your bodies, how's the hammy? Is it improving?
It's still improving. Like, I still have problems with it, but I can't. Yeah, I don't want to be stopping anything now. But I've already done that. We already tried resting. That didn't work. But it is trending better. Like, I've got help from James Barker at Clinic 88. So yeah, they've been working hard with me. So.
Yeah, it's good.
It's all good.
As you're tuning in, you're probably gearing up for a race, but how dialed in is your race nutrition? Precision Fuel and Hydration has you covered with a free online planner to calculate your carb, sodium and fluid needs for peak performance. Their range of fuel and electrolyte products makes it easy to hit your numbers. I swear by their resealable 90-gram gel on all my long runs and recently used it at the Ballarat Marathon. They also fuel top athletes like 4-time Olympian Lisa Waitman, Hayden Hawkes, and a regular guest on the Inside Running podcast, Izzy Bat Doyle. Visit the link in the show notes to personalise your race strategy. Use code INSIDERUN15 for 15% off your first order and support the show. Patrons, use the special code from the Patreon feed in Patreon-only episodes for a further discount of 20% off. Ready to elevate your performance? Click the link now. And now, let's get back to the show.
All right, I'll go through my week before we then get into the running news. So I kicked off Monday, did just over an hour out at Mulligan's at 4:19s, and then I went to the gym that afternoon. So I've been trying to get to the gym at least once a week. So I did like 45 minutes there at the gym. Then Tuesday, I was out at the track. So I had a bit of flex, and I guess this is a good thing about coaching myself, was I sort of modified the session as I went. So originally, a lot of the guys had like 16 400s off, sort of 2 minutes, like 45 seconds recovery or something like that. But then I was chatting to my old coach a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, look, you're old. You probably don't need to be doing too much speed work. It's just a bit risky. So I did 10 400s off a 2-minute cycle, and like I was probably running these on the quicker side for me. So I think my fastest was 70 and my slowest was 72, but I would have averaged 71 seconds for those 400s. And then straight off the back of those 10 400s, I was then going to go and do a bit of tempo. So I started off the plan. I was like, I'll just do a 2K tempo, which is what I did a couple of weeks ago. And then I was like, maybe 600 meters in, I'm like, nah, I'm just going to break it up into 2 by a K. So I sort of accelerated a little bit. So I ran 3:12 for the first K, took a minute rest, and then ran 3:04 for the second one. And the 3:04 actually felt like a fair bit better than the 3:12. So yeah, I was reasonably happy with that session. The yeah, look, the speed stuff for me now in my mid-40s is just way harder than it used to be. Like like going out and running 66-second 400s, even like maybe 5-6 years ago, like it wasn't that hard and I didn't need to be that fit to do it. Whereas now I feel like I'd actually be sprinting to run 66 seconds. But I guess when you're training for a marathon, you don't really need to be running that fast. So
that's what I'm interested to see, how I bounce out of this marathon if I go and do a few Vic milers, just to see how much like speed I lose from all this marathon training.
I know
it comes back quick.
Yeah, so when I was 37, I still felt like I was, I never had anywhere like nowhere near as much speed as you, but compared to where I had been at my best, like it still wasn't too bad. But then I reckon from maybe the age of 41 to 42 to now, it's just like chalk and cheese. But also, if you look at the training that I do, like I don't prioritize the speed stuff anymore. So that's to be expected if you, use it or lose it. So so then Wednesday got out for my midweek long run, which was 2 hours. So I listened to the monthly with Brady, Christian and Toby for the first like hour 15 or so, and then a bit of Spotify after that. So averaged 407s over the hills. So I was about 400 metres of elevation, I think, 29.2K. Then Thursday afternoon got out for 45 minutes, 420s. Friday, I didn't have a group session, and originally I was going to go out and do something over the hills at Mulligan, some like sort of threshold reps, but just because of the wind and the way Mulligan's works, it's like it's basically out and back. So it's like I would have a massive tailwind for half the session, and then I'd be rolling into a massive headwind on the way home. So I ended up just jumping on the treadmill and doing one of the old Norwegian specials of 6 by 6 minutes with 1 minute standing recovery. And I actually don't mind this because so before Gold Coast 2 years ago when I ran 2:23, I did a lot of treadmill sessions. And so for me to jump back on the treadmill, I can almost get a gauge of where my fitness is compared to then over this type of session, I suppose. So I did the first rep at 17.5K an hour, which would be like 325s. Then the next 4 reps were at 320s or 18K an hour. And then the last rep was 18.5K an hour, which would have been 315s. And I actually felt pretty smooth on this. Comparison to before Gold Coast 2 years ago, I would have done 6 minute reps at 18.5K an hour or 315. So probably not quite there from a threshold point of view, but I think I'm actually stronger over long runs than I was before Gold Coast. So hopefully those two sort of even out, and I'm somewhere in that sort of similar shape.
What's your goal time for Melbourne?
I don't really have one.
Just to beat Moose.
I don't know. Yeah, well, I don't know. I shouldn't beat Moose.
So,
he's an Aussie rep, and his PB is like 3 minutes faster than mine. So, look, I paced Gold Coast in July, and I ran 30K at 2:23 marathon pace, and I wasn't completely cooked at the end. Actually, I saw you, Leanne, right at the finish at that 30K. So I reckon I had maybe another 3-4K in me at that pace, and then it would have been like a real struggle home. So I'm hoping, but I hadn't really done a marathon block for that. So I'm hoping that having been a bit more specific since then, I can at least maybe hold that pace and run, 2:23.
And what kilometre pace is 2:23?
Like 3:23s, 3:24.
So that makes sense. That's why you're doing a lot of work between like 3:15s and 3:20s.
Yeah.
But what if we said the Australian record for 44-year-old is 2:21.47?
Yeah. Well, for the women, the women's over 45 record. Yeah, it's 2:21 from Sinead. Yeah, I know. It's like
no, but men. Yeah, for you, yeah.
What is
44? All right, look, Brady did say not to say it was his research, but he told 2:21.47.
Yeah, I don't know. I just sort of see what I do in training, and I reckon it's probably on par with our top Aussie girls. Last week I did the 4x5K with a 500 meter or 2 minute float.
And just going to write this down.
Yeah. Yeah. So did the 4x5K, 2 minute float, and I went through the half marathon in 71:20 or 71:30. And before the Tokyo Olympics, I did that exact same session here in Canberra with Sinead. And it was
I remember that.
It was pretty much on par in terms of the pace that I ran for that session with hers to what I did last week. So, and I guess she finished 10th, but yeah, I don't know. Like, everything's tracking pretty well.
Still got 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. To bury myself maybe. So the Friday session, was the treadmill one with warm up, cool down. Saturday afternoon, that's right. I was single parenting from Friday lunchtime to Saturday afternoon. So I didn't get out till that afternoon. So I did an hour at 4:14s. And then my Sunday run, I did 40K, 4:02 average with 600 meters of elevation, and managed to get on 180 grams of carbs. So I had a 90 gram precision pouch. I also had a 30 gram precision gel with caffeine. And then I put out 2 bottles that had 250 mils of the carb mix. And so each bottle had 30 grams of carbs in it. So I sort of just had that throughout the whole run. I reckon I probably finished the 180 grams of carbs within the 2 hours and 25. And so then the last 15 minutes, I didn't have anything. So I was, I was fairly happy with this because, as you said, Leanne, it was pretty windy, and the way so the headwind was, so I pretty much did 2 20K sort of out and backs, and the last 10K of every, I guess, lap was reasonably strong headwind. So so that was a week of 144K in singles. So I was pretty happy.
Sounds like a surf break.
Mulligan's flat. So it's this nice nature reserve. Really nice sort of fire roads. It's a great place to run.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about it before on the podcast.
Yeah. So I'm now, pretty much for the next 3 weeks, I'm alternating between a marathon-specific long run on the Saturday, and then the following week I do a marathon session on the Friday and just a standard long run on the Sunday. So this coming week I'm going to do probably 24K into 10K at marathon pace. And then a short cool down. The week after, I'm going to do maybe a 2x10 or 2x11K on the Friday and 2.5 hours on the Sunday. And then the week after that, I'm going to do 3x5K at the end of my long run. And then that'll be 3 weeks out, and then that'll be my time to start tapering.
Yeah, because I was thinking, is this 40K? But then you're used to running a lot and far, so I would look at this and be like, oh, is that a bit risky doing 40 this far out? But it's just what you like, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit excessive, but the reason why I did it was probably more the mental training than anything, because I haven't run many marathons. Well, I've only ever run 5 marathons in my life, and I've only run 1 marathon since 2018. And so I just want to sort of callous the body and the mind a little bit, because yesterday I got to 2 hours 15, and after 2 hours 15 you're already pretty tired, and I've got half an hour to go. But that half an hour from 2 hours 15 to 2 hours 45 hits way different compared to the half an hour from 45 into an hour 15. And I feel like that's where you get this mental and physical strength. And I figured it's 6 weeks out, so it's far enough out that I should be fine. And I pulled up fine today. Wasn't sore. Went to the gym, did a run on the treadmill, so all good.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, let's thank some patrons. Who have you got, Leanne? I think you're in the red, aren't you?
Yeah. I've got Bernadette Cashman from Brisbane. Has run 41:15 at the Brisbane Road Runners 10K. 87:55 at the 2023 Gold Coast Half Marathon, and 3:12 at last year's Valencia Marathon. That would be nice. And is the Principal Health Funding Analyst at Queensland Health.
Very good. Thanks, Bernadette. And who have you got, Jeff?
I've got Andy Love. from the UK, part of the Billingham Running Club, PBs of 16:02 from 2024 Summer Coast 5K, 34:37, 2021 Croft 10K, 74:38, 2023 Brass Monkey Half Marathon, and 2:49 at this year's London Marathon. So interesting half to marathon conversion there.
Yeah, so
as we were speaking before.
Yeah, so he's halves. Yeah, his half's better than his marathon there. So he's got a bit of work marathon.
Yeah.
And I've got
maybe a volume training thing.
Yeah, potentially, because he's got 16:02 as well. So I've known some guys that have run like low 16s that can run 2:30 low for the marathon. Yeah. And I've got John Bate from Adelaide. His primary club, according to Strava, is the Adelaide Running Crew, and he's a regular at the Pakapakanthe Park Run. He ran 20:03 at the Park Stampede Relay 5K, 42:16 for 10K, and 92 minutes at the 2022 Run Melbourne Half. He also ran 3:22 at the 2022 Sydney Marathon. So thanks to those patrons and all the patrons over there. Brady will be recording tomorrow episode 3, I think it is, of Road to Chicago. So I know Brady ran 202 kilometres or something last week, so you'll hear all about that over there. Let's move on to running news. We'll kick off, Leanne, with World Juniors. So all the results that I've put down here for you are our top 10 results from a distance point of view.
Yeah. So 800, we had silver for Claudia Hollingsworth in 2 minutes 87. And the race was won by Sarah Mora from Kenya in 2 minutes 36, and that's Mary Mora's cousin.
Is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Peyton Craig got silver in 1:46.95, but it was won by General Bahanu Ayansa from Ethiopia in 1:46.86.
Did either of you watch these races?
Not in full, only the last.
Yeah, it's actually been really hard to find like footage. Like I was searching online YouTube today trying to find footage of the races, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere. So.
Yeah, I watched them
noticed,
live. I think.
Yeah, how'd you watch it?
Just on. So I went to the World Athletics site, and then if you have an account with them, you can basically like watch it live. So because I think it was on like Saturday morning our time. And so like
8 a.m., 7 a.m.
Yeah, and like Claudia was like typical Claudia, just like put herself in the right spot. And I thought with like 100 metres to go, she was going to like put on that sort of, strong finish. And she did actually get level with Sarah Mora, but she was able to kick away quite easily in the end. And then, Peyton was like midfield for most of the run. And then you sort of expected that sort of bulldog finish that he always has. And he did start to get moving, but it just wasn't able to pick up the general. So, And then 1,500.
1,500, 1,500. So our boy Cam Myers got the silver in 3:40.6, but the race was won by Disa Faisa from Ethiopia in 3:40.51. Again, I didn't actually get to see this in full, but I do know from Aaron, my partner, that Dick was very pleased with how Cam executed this race. So
he was in front.
He was
in front, wasn't he? Yeah,
leading into the straight.
But this Ethiopian did have a quicker PB than Cam, didn't he?
Yeah. So he did.
Yeah.
Going into the championship. Yeah.
Yeah. We just wanted to see, an 18-year-old take the win.
Cam run any high level 800s?
He hasn't run super quick, has he? Over 8. I'll have a
140. Did he end up running 147?
Oh.
I know about when they were in their pre-camp, he did a 148 in training. 800. So yeah.
Just on his profile now.
But he's had a long season. So
147. 147.11, it says here is his 800 PB.
Yeah, I think that was Canberra Track Classic.
It was, when Peyton, Peyton sort of,
Anyway, and we had Cleo Richardson 7th in 420, which is a PB. Can't ask for anything more than that. Race was won by Saron
Thirty.
from Ethiopia in 4:16. And in the 5,000, Gabriel Schmidt came 8th in a PB of 16:10. And it was won by Medina Aisa in 14:39. Which is a championship record, I think.
Yeah. Well, she finished like 8th at the Olympics or something, didn't she? Medina Aisa.
Yeah. And Australia won 14 medals, 2 gold, 7 silver, and 5 bronze. So,
yeah, which is incredible. And the question that I have for both of you is like where has this come from? Because I think our previous best at a championship was 10 medals. That was back in 1996. And from the outside looking in, it doesn't appear that like AA have changed anything in terms of like funding models or support for athletes. Like, why do you think we're doing so well with the juniors at the moment?
I don't know. The like, you know, if you take, for example, Jess Hull, like, are her performances really, you know, is that really being an inspiration for, you know, is that doing more than we think for our juniors? Like, I don't know.
Have we got better quality of coaching, do you think?
Maybe, yeah.
You know, like a lot of younger coaches, Jaden Russ getting involved.
Yeah. It's certainly good.
A lot more knowledge as well, like Strava, you know, what the college kids are doing, what the pros are doing. I definitely think there's a lot more information out there. I think the shoes are obviously helping them run fast, but that's helping everyone run fast. But I'm just wondering if it's also just making it a bit cooler and, you know, just the technical side of it. Like, we're in a running boom at the moment. You know, a lot of kids trying to push like the standard to get to college now. Like, you have to be really good. Like, you basically have to be going to World Juniors to get a full ride. Otherwise, you're probably not getting one.
Yeah.
So they've got to push harder. But I think an interesting one, I'm pretty sure Jess Hull, Matt Denny, and Nina Kennedy were all 2014 Eugene World Juniors.
Yeah.
You
know,
I did hear that like,
the
even if we can only hit on 7 of these kids.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have some, you know. But, like, yeah, we've, like, especially in the distance, we've been seeing, like, Cam and, Claudia, Peyton, just not just breaking records, but, like, obliterating them. Like, obliterating them.
Juniors being super competitive in the open.
Yeah.
Like,
do you remember when Ryan Gregson burst on the scene and ran that 3:37 at the Sydney Track Classic? That was like, he broke the under 20 record. And it was like, oh my God, what the?
It was nuts.
It's like 3:33 now.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's good for the sport, and it's going to be, like, hopefully we can sort of transition them all so that they're, you know, winning these medals on the world stage, like you know, in the Opens. So.
Yeah.
Well, Cam on a big Nike deal. Like, he's probably one of the highest paid guys in Australia. I know Peyton's doing really well with On, you know. So they've got the resources behind them.
True. Question on
really any excuses.
So when you say that Cam's like on one of the biggest contracts of probably Aussie athletes, do you think a big part of that is because of Jakob and he was basically the same trajectory?
Yeah, and the Brisbane Olympics are in 10 years and he's going to be like 26.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's a 10-year deal.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Very good. But
also, like, if you look at what's happening in America, like Drew Hunter, and Hobbs Kessler, like, the brands seem to like to tie down these really young, talented guys to kind of long-term deals. So it's nearly it's not a gamble, but it nearly is a gamble that they're making.
We've always been against. We've been against.
You froze on us a bit there.
Sorry. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, got you back.
Yeah. So over the years, we've been sort of against praising juniors in a way, because we've seen so many top juniors then not progress into open, top open athletes. But the difference with people like Cam is it's when Cam burst onto the scene, the times that he was running were world class, not just world class for a junior, but literally world class. And so that's where you can see why brands get behind it, because he's already at world class. Whereas, back in the day, it would have been, a junior comes out and runs 3:39. It's that's phenomenal for a junior, but it's still not world class compared to the top guys that are running low 3:30s. So,
well, we've got Ben Thomas who's run 3:37, and no one probably even knows who he is.
Yeah. Carly's brother.
But you also only need to listen to Cam speak and know how mature and how much of a student of the sport he is, and just his attitude to be okay, this guy, he's built different.
Yeah.
But this year he's probably stagnated a little bit. I know that sounds harsh, but he's going incredibly well in March, and it's really hard. We spoke on the daily during the Olympics for a young person to keep that going for so long, because they don't have the mature body. So he's going to be sick to watch. And then you got Laros as well, who's a year older. He's probably even I had a bet on him to win a medal at the Olympics. He's 19.
Yeah, I think Cam's going to have.
Cleo Richardson comes from good pedigree. Her mum was an Olympian, 5K runner, 15 something, and her dad wants a gift. Yeah, Kate. Yeah, I think did she win Com Games 5K?
Yeah, she did. Yep, she won Com Games 5K. She won National Cross. I saw her name on the National Cross winners list today when I was doing a bit of research. Was it? I think it was the 1998 Com Games, Kuala Lumpur maybe, that she won. Yeah.
Yeah, and she spent a lot of the end of last year injured, so only really started running in January. So she's done incredibly well to run a 4:20 PB. Yeah.
Very good.
So trains with Gavin Burren and who has Abby Caldwell. So good little mentor for her too.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the Rome Diamond League. So I've got you down for this, Jeff.
Yep. Kip Yagan, 352.89. Halu, 354.16. Halum, 354.7. Jess was 4th in 354.98. And Lyndon was 10th in 358.84, which was pretty amazing considering, injured calf. But not only that, she's not getting any younger. And she just keeps
And she bounces back at the 358.
But even the level of this event now, this time last year, you're running 358. You're not finishing 10th in a Diamond League. It's gone crazy. It wasn't that long ago that the Aussie record was in that sort of 357.
Well, I think we were talking about on the daily. I remember I was at the track for Big Milers when Lyndon broke 4 minutes. Was the first Australian to break 4 minutes. This was in 2021. I'm pretty sure. It's 3 years later. It's what is it? 350 now?
Yeah.
350.8 now.
Yeah. Incredible.
Just insane, yeah.
I didn't see any of this, and I spoke about it last week. So since the Olympics, the Diamond League's now on Stan Sport. So
which I just realised I'm still paying for from the Olympics. So I actually turned it on just before.
So which is a bit of a shame.
I've been trying to log in, it's been geo-blocked, and I'm the first thing I do is get up in the morning, and I didn't know. There's been no advertisement that's moved to Stan, and I've had Stan, and usually my Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings, whenever it's on, is literally just Diamond League.
So you didn't watch any of this meet?
I seen the 1500. 59 first lap, 59.8 first lap, and then 64, and then Kip Yagan just blew it open in the last 300. Jess was second right behind her, but just got a bit tired in the last 80. And yeah, got passed by the two Ethiopian girls. But yeah, Jess looked up for it. Like, she was not running behind. She was kind of like running on the outside shoulder. Like, she just looked like, yeah, looked like she probably could have been more patient, but she was just like, yeah, like just wanted to attack it. You could see, but
how do you reckon Jess goes the rest of this season? Because, like, no doubt that build up to the Olympics with what she did in the weeks leading in, and then the emotions of the Olympics themselves, winning a medal, like, it must be hard to then get, I know this is her job and she's such a professional, but it must be so hard to get your head back in the game to close out the season.
Yeah, well, I listened to the Letron.com podcast, and they've been saying how many of the Americans have already called their seasons and gone home. Like, nearly all the big names have just, and she's still out there battling, like, yeah, still performing like 354.9.
Yeah.
A PB going into this year if all the other stuff hadn't happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually messaging with Nick Willis today, and we're sort of talking about the shoes, because I was cleaning out my my parents' old shed, and I found some lunar spiders, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I wish the kids knew about these things. And he messaged me and he goes, mate, you should have seen my Reeboks. But yeah, what he was sort of saying was the new spike technology and the new tech in the spikes and the shoes are just allowing for performance to back up over a longer period. Like, he was sort of saying, like, it was much harder to time your peak because you just had to deal with different loads from the shoes, which I'd never thought about. And like, look at Jakob, what he's doing. Oh my God. And I know he trains different.
I don't know how she does it on a mental side of thing, though. Like, putting in a really hard effort and then just having to do that again and again and again. It gets really taxing, but she's doing it. So
I guess she left Union. She set up her own shop, got her dad, got the training partners in. Like, she's obviously, Croaks is doing 40K runs to build that resilience.
Yeah, I guess it's all gonna
Yeah, that's only because I can't run 61 second 400s.
Yeah. So I got told that she spent $40,000 this year on training partners.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But she got a 50K bonus for breaking the world record, so more than paid for them. But do you know what I mean? Like that's the level that she's gone to, just like to give herself every opportunity. Now, not everyone has 40K to throw around on training partners, but she's got ownership over a whole program now. So like, I feel like when you've got ownership and that accountability and that buy-in, that's got to help motivate her. And when you're on a streak like this, you kind of get everything out of it. Hey?
Tax deductible, that 40K as well, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, not sure.
It's a business expense. This is a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good question. Good question for the accountants out there. Maybe the accountants can, And I guess the other thing that's probably keeping it going is it's like, there's a fair bit of money up for grabs over the next few weeks with obviously the Diamond League she's still doing it and finishing in the top few places, plus the Diamond League final.
The final.
Yeah. But look what Nina did. She came back. She was on the project. She was on every single television station growing her brand. Like, do you think that's worth more? And that's what all the Americans are back doing. They're probably, earning a lot of money outside of. But I think it just goes to show how, just she loves running. She obviously just, you know what I mean? She's just so committed to it.
Yeah. All right, move on to the men's 5K.
Yeah. So we had Gebrawet 12:51.07, Kajalcha 12:51.25, Borrega 12:51.39. I think there was 5 of them on the bend going with 100 to go, but they went through in 7:37 through 3K and then slowed. Morgan McDonald was 14th in 13:20. So there'd been a lot of talk that they were attacking the world record, but they got really hot, humid conditions in Rome, which even having it on at 10 o'clock at night, I think it just scuppered it a bit.
Yeah, because I saw the splits and they're rolling 60s to 61s for that first 3K, and then they went to 65, 66s for a few laps, and then obviously kicked home. Yeah.
Well, they're probably thinking we got to get it now because Jakob's going to send it to another planet, like whenever he decides to.
Yeah, I guess it might be till next year.
What does 7:17 equal for 5K? It's got to be like.
Oh, I think they did the.
Is it like sub 12:30?
Yeah, I think on the monthly last week, Christian put that into the calculator, and for the marathon, it worked out to be 2 hours and 3 seconds or something.
No, I'm pretty sure 2 hours and 35 is the only performance that's above it on world rankings. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's second behind. The 2035.
No, he was putting it into like one of those pace calculators. So like Millen calculator or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think on the how they do the world ranking is it's the second best performances, and I think it equals 3:24 for 1500.
Okay. Yeah. And last event, which is probably the most, well, not exciting, but like the one that got close to the world record was the women's steeple.
Yeah, Winifred Yavi, 8:44.39, just 0.07 off the world record. Peruth Cheptemai, 8:48, and Faith Chirotich, 8:57.
Yeah. So
was Chemutai pacing and stayed in and ran 8:45? Was that?
I'm not sure. Well, Chemutai was the previous Olympic champ, and so I wouldn't have expected.
Don't think she'd be pacing.
Yeah. Question for you, Jeff. With the way that I know you love the 800, the way the 800's been this season, do you see that world record going down? Like, I don't know if they're going to have enough opportunities this season, but within the next year?
Yeah. Like, look what A-Rock did. Negative split, ran a few extra meters and got within 0.1. It's definitely going to go. I don't think it'll happen this year because their best probably chance was straight after, but you could see Wanyonyi by the time he got to the second meet was already kind of fallen off. I think he finished fourth and he still ran 1:42, but it's just, you can see from Jess, it's really hard to stay at that really, really high level. And then, just hopefully they don't put like 16 guys in the race like I think they did in Silesia. It just makes it way too hard. So I think they need really good pacing. Just sort of trying to get it at the right time of the year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I was in the stadium for Rudisha's 800 record and that was just like, what did I just watch? I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Like the 800's dropped a lot this year. And not just the time, but the amount of guys that are running fast. So I'm not sure whether there's a change in training. I caught up with JR on the weekend and like his guy ran 1:43.9 and he's basically doing a heap of threshold with him. So that like a 1:43.9 guy does double threshold.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And he still does like his max speed. He still does his 800 meter stuff, but it just seems like, the sort of the threshold stuff is coming out.
I guess the thing we forget as well with Rudisha's world record was it wasn't a pace diamond league. It was like gun to tape in an Olympic final, which you'd have to think that if he was in a paced race, like it's got to be worth a little bit more.
That's what Wanyonyi did. Wanyonyi ran 1:41.19, didn't he, in the Olympic final? Leading from gun to tape?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
The only difference was I think Rudisha went 48.8 maybe, and Wanyonyi was 49.2. So
is the 800? Is the 800 an event where you can sort of, because obviously like we look at distance running and it's like, well, if you've got a pacemaker, you're generally going to run faster. Like the 800, we've seen a couple of the fastest times ever have been with no pacemakers.
Yeah. So that's another thing Justin's been doing. He's gone through like all the historical results and he's basically got 200 meter splits for every single one. And the top 10 times that are now have the smallest gap between the 200s.
Yeah.
So they're getting their pacing right. Whereas like if you remember like some of the older school YouTube like athletics footage of when Kip Keeter and stuff, and even I think Co, like they were massively positive splitting, like with insane first laps. Whereas now And even look at the way like Jakob and what the pace lights are doing for the distance events. Like he obliterated that 3K, but it's like he sort of was so like methodical in the way he attacked it. Like the first 2K not being too fast and knowing he can still close in 56 seconds. Do you know what I mean? So I think the wave lights and the pace is just allowing a little bit more of that, whereas they definitely weren't thinking about performance like that, in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and we spoke about it last week. So the original 3K world record that went out really quick. Coleman went out really quick the first 800, and then only was able to run 59 for the last 400. Whereas you look at what Jakob did, it was pretty much 55 for the last 4 and 57,
152 something for his last 800.
Yeah. So which is obviously to do with the pacing. All right, so move on to some Paralympic news. So we've had a couple of Aussies in the distance races go around. So Jared Clifford, he unfortunately was disqualified in the 5K for letting go of the tether before the finish. So he had a couple of guides helping him. So Tim Logan and then Matty Clark sort of jumped in halfway through the race. And the rules there that you need to hold on to the tether the whole race, and the athlete needs to finish before the guide, which, Jared did finish before Matt, but he let go maybe like a metre before the finish line and was unfortunately DQ'd.
Is that harsh?
I guess they're the rules though, and it's so black and white. Like, and it was I guess you can't really appeal it, can you? If that's the rule, and there's clear footage that you've let go of the tether a metre before the line, it definitely wouldn't have impacted the result. But my question is, we see Jared racing all the time without a guide.
I don't understand it.
Why? The only thing I can think of is potentially, because I know that he starts to get a bit of fatigue, gets really fatigued with his vision, and so maybe the 1500 he can probably get away with on his own. And we don't see him run that many 5Ks here in Australia, and so maybe the 5K just, fatigues him a little bit more from a vision point of view. I don't know. I thought he would have maybe got through without having a guide.
He's had a guide for the 5K at all his Olympics, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But the marathon he doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's at that sort of intensity when
Didn't he?
I don't know. And then we had Michael Roger, which was a very entertaining race. So Rogues is the world record holder. I think it's 3:46, and he basically went from the gun, and with a lap to go, he would have had 50 meters. It was a big gap, and then got to about 200 meters to go. And, the piano started to jump on his back, and the last 100 looked very, very painful. So he got passed down the home straight, was lucky to hang on for silver. So he ran 3:51.19. The race was won in 3:50.24 by the defending champ, Ironman. It was – do you guys watch this race?
I saw it, yeah.
He
was flying until
Jeff, you got to go back and try.
It's the worst way to lose as well. Just to get past on the straight when you've just absolutely put on the line. That's basically how Yak would have been feeling after his 15.
My question is,
people go past you hurts.
It's always easier in hindsight, but I was looking back at it now, because he had such a massive gap. It's and because in that 1500, I feel like there's this period in a race where you know that if you keep going, you don't have much longer until you are going to hit lactic city. And he had 50, 60 meter gaps. Do you just back off a little bit to maybe get to 50 to go before you start to really tie up, as opposed to keep pushing and then start to fade from 200 to go? I just feel like he could have maybe just, not kept pushing, just run a little bit within himself, because the gap, how long do you reckon it was? 60 meters, Leanne? It was huge.
At least 50. So
Yeah,
But I guess once you've committed to what you're doing, it's hard to stray from that. So
yeah.
And when they're closing you down, it's easy to not like to tighten up.
Yeah.
Like when you know they're coming, it's just like you're all of a sudden you're in your head and you're not.
Yeah. And you could see him running down the straight, looking up at the big screen, just seeing them coming from behind, just knowing that he's like, oh, no. Anyway, it's still a great result. That's his best finish at an Olympics, so well done, Rogues. And then just the last bit of news, which I saw today, was that the road mile world record was broken by Elliot Giles in Dusseldorf. He ran 3:51.3, and I saw last week that it was sort of being set up for Yared Nuguse to break the world record. He finished second in 3:51.9. The old record was held by Emmanuel Wanyonyi, 3:54.6. But I don't know how you feel about this, but ever since World Athletics brought in those sort of road running championships, they sort of reset a lot of these like road world records. So for some context, the Fifth Avenue mile record is 3:47.6, held by Sydney Marie since 1981, and Josh Kerr ran 3:47.9 there last year. So, but that's not.
I'm pretty sure it's net downhill, though.
Because it's net downhill, yeah. So there's obviously certification and all that sort of thing. That's why we're seeing a lot of road world records being set, because it's sort of all been reset as of like last year.
Good for Elliot Giles, though. Falls over at the Nationals, doesn't make the Olympics, goes camping in the Switzerland mountains with his family with this like insane setup. Because I follow him where I'm used to, like, he was one of the guys I used to hang out with on the circuit. Gets a call up for Paris like in the last hour, and then just breaks the world record. Like I literally thought when he was camping he'd thrown his season in. And Olympics are now 3:51 mile. Maybe there's something in it. Train less.
He cross trains, doesn't he? Does heaps of cross training.
Yeah, a lot of cross training.
All right, listener question. Do you ever have periods of low motivation? And if so, how do you overcome it? Leanne?
Oh, I was hoping you'd go Jeff first.
It's my biggest battle at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there. And I was even thinking that today. I mean, you have it once off days where you're like, ugh, like, look at the weather. I could easily not run this afternoon. But I guess, I don't know. It's hard to, because I was talking about it with Aaron, my partner. I was like, there's nothing I can say that's even going to be helpful, because it's not even, I don't even see it as motivation sometimes. It's just, I'm not motivated a lot of the time. I just do it. Like it's, it's actually, it's probably more rare to be not unmotivated, but I'll say less motivated than when you're, but I guess that's where having a target race sort of changes how you go about your week. When you've got a target race, you've got meaning to do each run, to do whatever. But yeah, I don't really have much. I'm not that much help here because, I don't always see it as needing motivation. I just do it because it's my job, not job. But yeah.
Well, also, I feel like you're in your prime and you've still got some like really big like goals that you want to achieve, and so
I'm not.
No, I'll put you on the bucket as me, Jeff.
I've never looked better.
And so I feel like, when you've still got like, all those goals and that you can run a lot faster and, you want to make teams and compete on the world stage, it's like probably easier to stay a bit motivated. And Jeff, you've basically been to the pinnacle. You're not there anymore, but you're still running. Like, and so I'm sure you have times when you're like, why the hell am I doing this?
At the moment. Yeah. No, when I was running, I loved it. And I loved the way I used to be able to build my season. And the reason I called my coaching group Momentum Running is because I used to just feed off the momentum and the energy that you build as you go through the season. When you get fitter and like you start and you feel like an elephant, like after you break, but like you get to a point like, okay, I've done 6 by K in like sub 3 minutes. Like that's a little box tick. And it's just you just find little wins along the way. You're like, okay, yep, I'm improving. And then you sort of have the domestic season and it's like, all right, I just got to dip my toe in it. You have changes of environments like falls where you get really excited for training blocks and then you sort of come down, so you end up sort of cycling kind of through the year, and then you get through the domestic season and it's like, all right, sweet. What do my European races look like? What does training look like? What do I need to do to get to the next level? What does so it's just sort of all those little goals along the way and all the planning and, just getting closer, I guess, to where you want to be is what kind of kept me motivated. That's what I kind of loved about it. And then, sort of fast forward now, like I needed like the Melbourne Marathon a goal to get out. Otherwise, I'd be just running half an hour every few days because, like I was thinking about it the other day, and Dave McNeil and Liam Adams, because I was telling my girls at Launceston on the weekend, my first national cross country was under 20s and I finished 45th out of 48. And Dave McNeil and Liam Adams, I think, went 1-2. And like the difference between them and me though is that like I'm a speed guy and I can do middle distance, whereas like they can probably sit at 80K a week of aerobic stuff and still be absolute animals at like cross country and the 10K and the half, because it's their physiology. Whereas like for me to do the marathon or to do a half and to be reasonably, like I have to actually like train really hard because it just doesn't come naturally to my physiology. Like I said, I'm 6'4", 80 kilos at the moment. Like I jump 2 meters in high jump. Like I'm just a very different beast to what like all the other guys are. So at the moment for me, it's just like goals. And the biggest thing I've loved about the marathon training is like I meet a group of guys that I only knew one of them before this for the long run on a Sunday morning, and chatting about the Olympics and just like, mingling again with like-minded people. Like a lot of my friends stop running and don't run that I used to run with. So it's been awesome to actually get back into the running community and do like 35K with other people. Mm-hmm. And that's probably what I'm most excited about for Melbourne is, those guys are also going to be on the line. And probably have a few beers afterwards, I guess.
Yeah. Very good. For me, it's probably, I suppose if you have goals, that helps, which I don't have a lot of anymore. Like I don't, I'm doing Melbourne Marathon, but I don't particularly have a goal. Like, I just want to not blow up and, execute a good race. But from a day-to-day basis, like getting myself out the door, it's more about and I remember Benny saying something like this. Like there's days when he didn't want to go for a run and he's like, just get out the door. If it's 5 minutes and you're still hating it, turn around and come back. But often once you're actually out the door, then you're fine. Yeah. So even on, when was it? I think it was Saturday afternoon. Yeah, that's right. I'd sort of been looking after the kids for the last day with Viva being in Adelaide, and she got home and I'm like, I just don't want to go for a run. And then I got out there and within 5 minutes I'm like, this is good. This is fine. It's just actually just getting out the door in the first place. The other thing I often think about is all of those times when you've been on the sideline, not being able to run. And so you almost, when you can run, it's like, well, I need to not take this for granted, because what about those times when I was told that, you've got a heart problem and you can't do any exercise at all? So that helps the motivation in terms of just getting out the door. So there's a couple,
Yeah, and I think the more times you get out the door, the easier it just gets.
Yep.
And it's like anyone, like they sign up to the gym and they're like, I get a 6-month membership, and they go for a week. And then they don't go. So I think it is really about creating those habits, because those habits, they basically callous.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the more time you do it, it's just, it gets easier. So
Brady has put in a whisper here. So Brady's not here, but he still loves to have his say. So his whisper is to keep an eye on Andre Waring for Melbourne Marathon debut. So he's a 28:30 and 64 half guy. Heard something there, Jeff?
Yeah, no, he put up a story and earlier on in the year, I said marathon debut soon. He said maybe end of this year, haha. But this was back in January. And then I did the session on Friday with one of his training partners. I'm like, Andre's running 30-some K on Sunday now. Like, he's hitting 200K weeks. I'm like, surely this guy's doing a marathon.
Well, it's 25 grand for first place too.
Someone's got to win it.
Is that more than normal? Or?
Yeah, that's a fair bit more than normal.
Yeah, okay.
Like, that's pretty good.
So has that got a bigger have they decided to pay more prize money and less appearance money then? Is that why they've done that, to try and get people there? Is that the strategy or?
Not sure, but like, you know, Gold Coast, for example, I think it was only 20 grand for the win to Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So in fact, Melbourne's 5K more. So, you know, that's going to should get some of our top guys there. So I watched this space. Another one here, which
who is running it at the moment that we know of?
I heard
Greg's
Jack
doing it.
Yeah, Jack Rayner.
Okay.
And Reese Edwards.
What event's that guy doing? Like, he seems to jump all over the place with his events.
Who's that?
Jack Rayner.
Jack. Yeah, I don't know.
Is it just sort of something like a bit of a focus post, like the disappointment not making the Olympics? Because I thought did he not run the 5K at the World Champs last year? I feel like he ran 13:04 last year in Oslo.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he ran obviously 27. Like, you know, I interviewed him.
Record.
Ran 27 low, and he was like at that point still trying to make the Olympics in either the 5 or the 10. I'm just jumping on his Strava now to see.
Is he thinking I can run 2:14
and get the win
at 90%? Because I thought the reason he went, because I thought he was going to be our next best marathoner. He just seemed to, you know, but he, like, especially, did he win the Commonwealth Games half?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
and that was like his breakout, and he'd won all our road races, and then he debuted really well, but then his body didn't seem to handle the training load, so he went back to the track.
Yeah. And when I interviewed him, he said the reason why he basically was not fueling enough. You know, during that period, and probably just not looking after himself, and so that's why he was having all this bone stuff. And he thought he got on top of it, but then we saw like there was nothing on his Strava from like pretty much June through to August.
Because he was traveling with Kevin Batt.
Yeah.
Around Europe.
But I've actually got a bet.
They look like they had a lot of fun.
They did. I've actually got a bet with Moose. I
think they did a lot of hiking and festivals.
Yeah, festivals. Yeah, I saw the festivals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually got a bet going with Moose that by the next Olympics, Jack will have Jack will have run faster than Brett over the marathon. Because like you said, Jeff, it's like he looked like he was going to have this, you know, like I just feel like a guy that runs what he does on the roads over the other distances, plus like a 27-minute guy on the track, if he can somehow convert that to the road, he's... Oh, yeah, he'll be insane. Does he have the discipline for the marathon, though? I don't know. He ran 31.5K yesterday in Fernie.
Silly.
Why? Yeah.
Silly.
Unless you're training for UNTB or whatever, why the hell would you run 30K there?
32 the week before that with 180K week. So yeah. Anyway, I think Jack will run it. Like what?
Okay, so my biggest thought is, what's the ramp of the training load been if he's getting to there?
All right, let's dig into it. I don't know, Brady. So he's gone 70. So he's gone basically 3 weeks in a row of about 73.
Okay.
Then he's gone 125.
Okay. Increased by 30%. Yep.
180. And then back to 163. But I haven't checked to see whether that included any cycling at all. So I'll just have to fact check that. I'll just quickly scroll through. Oh, yeah, no, he did some riding. Did a 27K ride. So it's probably more like 140, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I feel like that guy's built for the roads.
Yep. So anyway, by the next Olympics, he'll have a quicker marathon PB than Brett, and Moose will owe me a case of beer. Now, we normally do have another segment called Moose on the Loose. Now, I'm not sure whether either of you have something that you want to, get off your chest, but it could be Riseley's rant. I did notice one of your Instagram posts yesterday about a junior athlete being left off the Victorian team 2 years in a row, even though she was like the first finisher both years.
Yeah, and it was quite funny. Moose messaged me straight away and said, "Call him out."
You want to go? You want to go with that one?
Yeah. Well, this athlete was traveling around Europe to watch the Olympics, so missed our trial. So we did all the right things, put the discretionary selection because I was selecting the top 10 and then the next 2 by discretion. And I was like, well, yeah, who else is going to get it? Anyway, like all time passed, they announced the team. I'm like, oh, did Jasmine get discretion? They're like, oh no. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Anyway, I didn't even know who the selectors were. And like at this stage, you can just enter as whoever you want, basically. So we just entered her as MGGS. So she went and she improved from 9th last year to 6th this year and was, top Victorian. And she's running about twice a week. So she does like swimming's her main sport. And she actually bought her first pair of spikes off Moose. So,
all right. I think Moose runs with a dad.
Yeah. They're like really highly involved in the Anglesea Surf Lifesaving Club. And Dad actually finished 27th and 37th at Kona in 2008 and 2012 as like third in the non-pro, just in the age group. So, and then Mum won a Coolangatta gold, the paddle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's some pedigree there. But I've just got to try and get her a little bit more into running, which, is hard at the moment. Because I think by the time, Leanne, you can probably comment on this. Like she's in year 9 this year, so she's going into year 10 next year. And I feel like by year 10, like the girls have sort of decided what they're doing and they're starting to train more. And I reckon it starts to become more about how much training you're doing as to how much talent you got. Like when the really talent, like when an equal group of talented girls start training more, the gap grows, I reckon. So,
and it's also at the age where you either keep the runners or lose the runners because
yeah. Like I think she'll keep doing them all, but it's just like, I reckon it gets harder to spread yourself at a national level across 3 different sports because she goes to surf lifesaving nationals, swimming nationals, and running nationals. So, but yeah, good little talent to watch out for. And she's developing, which is great.
And did leaving her out of the official Victorian team impact their team result?
Yeah, it would have. So I reckon it cost them second spot.
Yeah. That's that's where it hurts. Yeah. Like the state organisation is they've sort of missed out on a particular medal.
Yeah, and like I do get it. Like she doesn't run anything outside of school. Or at least she doesn't run much outside of school. But she won our GSV competition, which is probably the strongest girls comp. She had the fastest time at AV relays, like the school comp. So, I'm not really sure what happened there.
There's enough data out there.
Yeah. She's very talented, but also put a bit of a chip on her shoulder, which I think was good for race day because she's competitive. She's a beast.
Good rant from you. Moose may not get his spot back.
Yeah.
All right, we're done. So what's coming up? We've got the Zurich Diamond League, which I believe Moose will be there watching live. So we've got the men's 1500.
What's his influencing trip? What's he doing?
He's over there on an on trip. So,
on trip? Yeah,
he says it's a business trip through work, but it's to do with
with the running company and stuff. Yeah.
He'll be at the Zurich Diamond League, and so we've got the men's 1500, which is like Olympic replay. You've got Hocker, Kerr, Nagoose, Jakob. That's going to be amazing. Got the women's 5K, so we've got Beatrice Chibet. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how quick she goes and whether she actually targets a world record here, because I reckon she's got she's got the ability to do it. Women's 800, we've got Belle.
You missed a name in that 5,000.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Georgia Griffith as well.
Is that a debut? 5K?
Yeah, because I had a look at the start list and there's no season's best, no PB.
Yeah, could this be? Yeah, sure. I thought 5K might be getting too far for her, but she obviously took to the 3K really well. And interestingly, 2015, I raced against Andreas Almgren in the 800. He was like a 1:45 mid guy, which was fast in 2015. And now that guy's run like sub 60 for a half.
Yeah.
And has he gone 26 high for 10?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe how much his physiology changed. To go from an 8 to, I guess the world record for the women's gone from Rio Olympics in the 800 to now having the women's marathon record, right?
Yeah. She's a sub 2 800.
She was 158.
Yeah.
Did I see a stat that she was in the same heat as Hassan at that Olympics?
I'm not sure.
I feel like there might have been a stat I saw on Twitter. Those two were in the 800 and now they're duking it out in the marathon 7 years later.
So, Leanne, how fast does Georgia Griffith run over 5K on debut?
Well, I don't know. So when she ran Sydney, our national 3K, that was her early in the year. That was her 3K debut. I don't know. What's plus 2K? I don't know.
You'd have to think, what she's run 8:24 or 8:26 as her best, and then she recently ran another low 8:30.
Yeah,
you'd have to think that's going to put her definitely under 15 minutes. It's just
I was going to say,
yeah.
I think in perfect pacing, 14:45 to 14:50, I reckon.
Yeah.
But if Chibet tries to go the world record and the race is just nasty and it might be hard for her. But I feel like she's a little bit like Josh Kerr. Josh Kerr can run a really mean 3K, but I feel like his 5K PB is 13:12.
Yeah.
And maybe he runs a bit faster now because he probably hasn't done one since he did that 2 mile, but it's sort of it's a little bit like Whiteman. He can run 7:37, but it's another, the 3K and the 5K for those type of athlete is still a big step up. It's not just slow down a bit and you run the extra 2K. It's kind of different.
Yeah. You've got the women's 8. It's got Belle, Riki and Mary Mora. And I saw it's not a Diamond League event, but Stewie's entered in a 3K in that same meet. We've got Burnley half where, Jeff will be going around.
Yeah.
Trying to get a gauge of his marathon
68.
fitness.
68. What's 68? What's that pace?
Oh, you'll be running with Brady then.
No, I'm definitely not going for 68. I'm going to go out at 3:33s and see if I can close it.
Yeah, so that'll be about 7. Yeah, so that'll be around that 74, will it?
Yeah, hopefully maybe start at 74, and if I can creep down to 72, feeling strong, then good signs for me. Real good signs.
And then we've got Bridge to Brisbane, which Bridge to Brisbane used to be one of the big road races around the country. I'm not sure. Whereas now, I don't think people travel for it quite as much. I remember, guys like Marty Dent used to go from Canberra up there for that. Whereas now, I feel like it's more sort of just Queensland-based athletes. And we've also got the Paralympics continuing as well. So, Leanne, what have you got coming up over the next week?
Not much. Just a full week of training, which would be good, and then another full week. Oh, probably not, because then it's Sydney Marathon. Yeah.
Well, all the best. If we're not chatting to you between now and the Sydney race and the Melbourne race, but there's a good chance, given Brady's away for another 6 weeks or whatever, that we'll probably have you back on. And likewise, Jeff, all the best for this weekend. And I think we'll probably get you on again before Melbourne, just to see how the marathon prep's going, and also maybe get you on the week after the Diamond League final, where you can sort of get real excited.
Well, I'm going to hold on to my Stan subscription now that I know for a little bit longer.
But thank you to both of you. You've been fantastic tonight. I wasn't sure how it would go, given that we've never done an episode where there's only been one of the regular hosts. But it was so much fun. So thank you. And
good. Thanks for having us.
Hopefully Moose should be back next week. All right, thank you. And
I do like Moose's banner. He provides a different level of podcast to the way you speak.
Loves a contradiction, Moose, though. 1 week he's like, oh, you do your long runs too fast. And then the next week he's on going, oh, yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the fast long run because I do Tuesday and Friday sessions, so I'm relatively fresh for Sunday. So a fast long run is really good for marathon training.
Yeah.
And then the week after it's back to, you need to take your long runs nice and slow. So walking contradiction.
I knew we probably didn't have time, but I listened to a podcast with the Science of Running, and it had David Roche, who won the Leadville 100 mile in his debut, and he broke the record. But he was basically saying that if you lined up all these 100-mile guys, it still comes back to whoever can run the fastest 5K.
I listened to that same one today.
Yeah, and those sort of nutrition's obviously a massive one that's obviously trending in the marathon and the ultra space. But yeah, he I thought training was going a little bit more towards the threshold. Well, at least what it seems to on the track, but he seemed to be talking about how important VO2 max is. So I found that quite interesting. So that might be a topic for future podcast.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a listen. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, it was very good. He's not sponsored by anyone, so he just and he's a coach, and he just basically tells it based on his experience and people he coaches and stuff. He gives a really good unbiased opinion on a lot of good things. So
I think Moose, is that the guy that was downing a heap of carbs every hour as well? Did he mention anything about that?
Yeah, he mentioned one guy down 90 grams in a single go in the race.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sort of talked about how you can get more carbs in now. And even though he only runs 100 miles a week, but he did this 100-mile race, and he sort of talks about how the training and all that sort of thing. And he also did sauna stuff for heat, I think. He gets in a really hot bath.
Mm-hmm.
So he had some. Yeah, he had some, and he also sort of talked because I know you guys love your shoes and stuff. They sort of talked about shoes and how they're starting to sort of change the trail running. I think Adidas must have put a heap of money into some research, and I don't know. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting as well.
Well, even ASICS, they've got, I ran in their Fuji, their new one, which has some of the super foam. Have you run in those, Leanne?
I don't have a pair, but I'm actually thinking I might have a place in my, training for them. But yeah, the foam, the Metaspeed trail almost.
Yeah. So it's basically still got the, outer sole of the trail shoe, with the lugs on it, but you've got some of the bouncier foam, which I think it depends also what sort of trails. Something like Mulligan's, those shoes would be perfect because it's such a groomed fire trail. Whereas if you're on some real technical single track, some of those might be a little bit unstable.
Yeah, well, he's talking about the Leadville ones are different. It's a trail running, but the course is quite different too. Was there a UTMB? I'm now an expert on these trail running.
I was going to say.
There was one in Chamonix or something. I can't say that word, but it's in France recently. A French guy won it. Chamonix. Yeah, Chamonix. There was a recent one, but I think that has a lot more hills and stuff. So he was sort of talking about how you also have to train for that part, but he didn't have to do it as much. Yeah, anyway.
I love how Jeff is training for a marathon, but he's already got one eye now on an ultra.
No. My hips and my legs go at about 30 already, so I'm definitely not going that far. It was more just the nutrition and the training I thought was quite interesting. How they're looking at their training. And it also made me think, if you think about Kipchoge, he's probably the GOAT in the marathon, right?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. Well, he's been the most. I guess he's been the most consistent over a long time. Yeah. Kipton was very consistent.
Yeah, a freak.
He didn't have a bad
also,
race.
Kipchoge won the 5K in, was it Seville or Paris? When he beat Albarouge and
2003. Yeah.
Yeah, so insane 5K pedigree, but maybe we're also not seeing the 5K pedigree of Kipton and some of these guys because they're going to the roads earlier because there's more money there.
Yeah.
That's might also be another thing. But yeah, this guy actually trained a lot at VO2 max, I think, for his 100 miler, which was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Very good. All right, thanks, team.
Sorry, I just continued this conversation on a few more minutes longer.
We'll continue this in a few weeks, Jeff, and we have you back on. But yeah, thanks a lot, and listeners will be back again next week. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Ready to take your race performance to the next level? We've already spoken about Precision Fuel and Hydration's online planner. Well, if you prefer talking to a human, you can also book a free consultation call to get a personalised strategy. We all love their products, and if you use the link in the show notes and the code INSIDERUN15, you can benefit from 15% off your first order and start to fall in love with their products too.